Welcome to one of the TLC sessions, Changing the Mindset of Addressing High-Risk Courses, One Variable at a Time. My name is Maja Zelihic. I'm the program chair of the Master's Degree of Organizational Management. And together with me is our team, Dr. John Bathke and Dr. James Moore. Both of them are core faculty members within the program of Master's Degree in Organizational Management. The way this project came about is we were given a list of courses that have the highest retention issues. And the three high-risk courses were BUS 600, BUS 610, and MGT 601. In the past, when a course was deemed as a high-risk course, a lot of times we were just looking at the curriculum, we were looking at the content of the course, and we were tweaking the course itself. However, this time around, we did something quite a bit different. We approached this as a research project. And we did this per the guidance of our academic dean, Don McKay, who gave us an actual chart to follow, a process flow chart, asking us to focus on certain variables, and upon completion of the project, come up with the actual proposed solution and findings in order to determine what needs to be done within the course. Each one of these courses in the program itself. With that said, I will hand this over to James Moore right now, and he will talk about the very first course in the sequence, BUS 600.
Thank you, Maja. So what ends up happening with the BUS 600, it's the actual first course that many of the students take when they start their master's program kind of school-wide. And what we find is that a lot of the folks come in and they're just a little bit underprepared. Now, there are some that are absolutely prepared, but there's some that are a little ill-prepared to tackle research and writing at the level that we actually require them to. So that's one of the first things that we actually have to address and look at. And if you take a look here at what we have is the 600 course drop rates in 2015. In the first quarter, we're looking at 51 drop students, 32 in the second quarter, 31 in the third, and 18 in the fourth. Though it's getting progressively lower, what we find is that this course tends to have a lot of folks that do drop out. And I think that one of the issues that we stumble across, other than them being ill-prepared, is perhaps they're not quite ready for the speed and nature of the curriculum they're dealing with, because they're coming out of say for instance, a bachelor's level program that they weren't accustomed to the nature of how this operates. So it was kind of an interesting study to see what those figures were and what those numbers were and how that operated for us. But as Maja mentioned earlier, we kind of took more of a holistic approach toward the situation versus looking at one or two little factors. So one of the other things that we reviewed was the textbook. And if you notice here, the books are accessed a lot more in the beginning of the course. Now, what happens is as the course goes forward, folks tend to actually get into the book just a little bit less, and that's what the stats are kind of showing us. And then when we look at the data from the book access, the case studies, they're the things that the students are kind of leaving by the wayside. So it's an interesting thing that they're not actually looking at some of the data in there. But from the constellation perspective, the course falls into the medium category for utilization for this Business 600 course. And for the end-of-course studies, and I don't know about everyone else, but I tend to kind of look at the end-of-course results to see, how the students viewed things. But there were no anomalies indicated by the ELCs that were of any major concern. The lowest score that came up with the end-of-course study ranged from 3.35 to 3.65 out of 4 possible points, and you'll see that here in Figure 1. And then the end-of-course comments from the students weren't included because they weren't necessarily corresponding, or they didn't really match up with the actual comment. So that was another interesting thing that came out of the study. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. John Bathke, and he's going to review Business 610 for you. Dr. Bathke?
Yeah, thank you, James. So Business 610 is another course that is found in 3 programs, the MAOM program, the MBA program, and the MPA program, all within the School of Business. And it is a course in organizational behavior, looks at team and group dynamics, organizational structures, motivation, leadership. So it's applicable to many disciplines. The size of BUS 610 tends to be on the large size. So unofficially, it has a student class size of about 21 to 28 students. So that itself can implicate retention rates of the course itself. In looking at this slide, we can see how this is a high-risk concern starting back from the academic year 2007 to 2008, that the retention, or the fail rate, has increased gradually up until this last academic year, and that is one of the main reasons why this course was included in this study as a high-risk course. So one of the areas that we looked at in this course was the end-of-course surveys and we examined the responses from between 2015 and in the beginning of 2016, and looked at both the qualitative and quantitative data. And both, when we looked at both, in short, they indicated that actually the students were very happy with the course in terms of their faculty and the curriculum. The quantitative scores showed that that their scores were actually slightly higher than the other scores for courses in the Forbes School of Business. So, for example, I would recommend this course to another student. It was a 3.36, whereas other scores were in the School of Business 3.23. I would recommend this instructor to another student, 3.31 as compared to all other Forbes courses at 3.23. And so consistently, the quantitative data showed that the students were not displeased with both the faculty and the curriculum. As well as the qualitative data, there were a lot of responses such as great course, excellent instructor, this course was challenging and informative, and that it was enjoyable as well as useful in the future. So there was an aspect that it enhanced the professional aptitude of the students. So the end-of-course surveys, I think, were reflected positively on the course. So then we also took a look at the credit hour analysis and the course sequencing. So in February 22nd of this year, credit hour analysis was done, and it received a score of 175.7 credit hours, which is obviously above the acceptable range of 135 plus or minus 15 credit hours. So this indicates that the course is on the rigorous side, but it doesn't necessarily show that it's a prohibitively difficult course. There are certainly other courses that have much bigger issues with credit hours. But this one, I think it does reflect a certain amount of rigor, but I don't think it does necessarily prohibit students from succeeding in the course. Another thing that we looked at was course sequencing, that because this course is used in 3 programs, the MAOM, MPA, and MBA programs, and it's used relatively early in those sequences. For the MAOM, it is 3rd in the sequence. For the MPA program, it's 2nd, and for the MBA, it's 2nd. So this implicates a few things. First, obviously, it can contribute to the large class size because the program, this course is used by 3 programs. So you have 3 avenues of students coming in to use this, so that will make the classes larger, which then will implicate or can implicate retention rates. And but since it's also new in the sequence, you might get less polished and unprepared students entering this course. And then the last thing that we looked at was the IROADs. And the IROADs indicated that there were a lot of issues pertaining to plagiarism and what have you very early in the course, basically that 66% of the IROADs examined in that year happened within week 1 and week 2, and that's where you find a lot of retention issues. That's where you will see the issues of unpreparedness and what have you appear. So in short, the course didn't look like it was suffering from faculty or curriculum issues, but it indicated that there might be a lack of preparedness. And so I'll now turn it over to Maja to review MGT 601.
Thank you, John. James, I would greatly appreciate if you can advance the slides on my behalf. MGT 601 was the second course in the sequence. MGT 601 was also the course that was deemed to be the highest risk out of the 3 courses we're presenting today. As a matter of fact, one of the issues with MGT 601 was that it had one of the highest retention issues out of all graduate courses observed across the board. So there was definitely a dire need to look at the MGT 601 from the standpoint of several different variables. We were looking at the student satisfaction surveys. We were looking at the library usage, rate of plagiarizing, graduate advising data, and other observed variables. And one of the issues that we came up with through some of the variables that were observed was that the course itself is in dire need of improvement, but not within the course curriculum. However, what we discovered is that our students are simply not ready for the graduate level rigor. And in order for the students to be more successful in the course, in order for us to troubleshoot and improve some of the rates of students who are dropping out or some of the failure rates, we need to actually prepare our students for the graduate level curriculum. This particular chart is, we're looking at the drop rates. Now, when it comes to the drop rate, there is a seeming improvement in comparison to the first quarter of 2015 to the fourth quarter of 2015. However, that improvement may be somewhat misleading. There were changes that were made to the course in June of 2015, and as a result of those changes, some assignments were eliminated. Now, one may read the improvement that we see when it comes to the dropout rate. Result of those improvements is that we are in a situation where the curriculum is now a bit easier for the students, therefore fewer students are dropping out. However, we also notice that the enrollment is also going down. So as the enrollment is going down, fewer students are dropping out. So the correlation, the seeming correlation that we were happy to see at the beginning is not necessarily as positive if we look at it from a standpoint of fewer enrollment. When it comes to the failure rate, we are actually observing the same thing. Failure rate, it does appear to be a little bit better. The period of 2013-2014 in comparison to 2014-2015. Yet again, correlating these variables only by stating that, well, this is because we improved the course would be misleading due to the fact that the enrollment numbers suffered as well. What we did is we started looking at several different variables, and we were looking at the graduate advising data. We were looking at the data that graduate advisors were collecting from students as they were dropping out of the course, and graduate advising also informed us of a very interesting trend. Sometimes students they were automatically enrolled in the BUS after they were done with BUS 600. The calendar week would end. They would be automatically enrolled in MGT 601. However, some students actually failed BUS 600. So they would be automatically dropped out of the MGT 601 in the first week of course, which I noticed as well because I did an informal case study of this course in January and February. So I had some students that were dropping out in the first week of course prior to any assignments being due. And that was the actual administrative drop that had nothing to do with the students not willing to be in my course. It had to do with the fact that they haven't successfully passed the prior course. Another interesting trend was that students were complaining about the textbook. They were saying the textbook is difficult to understand, and also the textbook is costly. We were able to troubleshoot that to a certain extent by implementing a new constellation book. That constellation book is in works. The final manuscript has been shared with us, and we're actually revising the course based on the new textbook that is, number one, cheaper, and as a second point, maybe a little bit easier to understand. That book will be live end of this year. Another thing that we noticed has no correlation with the issues we had with within this course is the fact that the faculty satisfaction. Faculty average satisfaction rate was 3, which was deemed not only as acceptable but satisfactory. So the faculty performance was not impacting issues within the course. So we looked at every single one of these 3 courses, the BUS 600, BUS 610, and ultimately MGT 601. And what we determined is that while there are a few things to tweak, John was mentioning the credit hours. Credit hours can be tweaked as well with MGT 601. And the way to tweak those is that we can eliminate some articles that are not necessarily impacting course objectives or that are not necessarily connected to the assignment. That will alleviate some of the pain points that students have. We are revising a textbook for BUS 610. We are implementing a new one for MGT 601. So that is not to say we're not touching other variables, but the reoccurring theme is that our students are not ready. They're not ready for the graduate level curriculum. Therefore, we started teaming up with different colleges, College of Education, and now College of Health is on board as well. And we're going to work on the adaptive learning modules. And those adaptive learning modules will be implemented in BUS 600. They will be implemented in the first 3 weeks. And those learning modules will be serving as a semi-orientation course. We were toying with the idea of having a standalone orientation course. However, that was not something that we were able to get done. So now within the BUS 600 curriculum, we will be covering certain content that is of a great importance when it comes to our students being ready. We will be covering strategies for success, time management, stress management, meeting deadlines, organizing oneself, how to balance a busy family, work life, and going back to school. Research and writing. 1 to 2 hours spending on how to write a good academic paper, how to properly format it, how to cite one's resources, how to properly end an opening paragraph with a successful thesis, and how to come up with a satisfactory closing paragraph. Critical thinking, how to address discussion questions at the graduate level, rigor. About your degree, getting them a little bit familiar with what type of program they're actually pursuing and what is that degree going to do for them in a long run. Also, we will be focusing on Turnitin, how to properly submit and read Turnitin findings, how to give your sources proper credit, and how to find your sources to begin with. Because some of the variables we're looking for is library searches that were present in BUS 600, because one of the assignments was tied to the library search. They're significantly dropping in MGT 601. So those are the types of things that we will be doing, and hopefully by preparing our students in BUS 600 to be ready for the graduate level curriculum, we will resolve some of the pain points in the further courses in the sequence, such as MGT 601 or BUS 610. After the adaptive learning modules are implemented, we are planning to conduct a post-evaluation study and to see whether we are having a significant impact when it comes to both the dropout rates and failing the course rates. With that said, we are completing our recorded TLC presentation. Please make sure to follow us on the TLC application. You can post your questions for there for our team. And also TLC YouTube channel will have our recording, and you can post questions for all three of us under the YouTube clip, and we will be happy to address any questions you may have. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.